Welcome back to the Delay the Binge Podcast. This is where we slow down and examine the patterns behind our reactions, the mental habits that shape how we think, cope, perform, and make decisions. Because most struggles aren't about character. They're about conditioning. And when we understand what's happening in the brain, we stop shaming ourselves for being human. That's exactly where today's conversation lives. Today, I'm joined by Lissy Alden, CEO and founder of MYNDY, not MYNDY, but MYNDY, a mental fitness company designed to help individuals and organizations win the moment. She studied at Cornell, completed her graduate degree at MIT, y'all, where she began the foundational research that ultimately shaped MYNDY. And she's built frameworks that address stress from psychological, physiological, and organizational angles. Lissy, I'm truly glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Pam. It's such a pleasure.
It's so awesome. I'm so excited. So before we dive into frameworks and neuroscience, what's been taking up the most mental bandwidth in your world lately?
Great question. There's been a couple things on the personal front and a couple things on the work front. So personally, I just went on my honeymoon and I am 22 weeks pregnant and I just moved. So all of that happened within a 2-week, not the pregnancy part, we're growing the baby during this period, but the move and the honeymoon happened in the last 2 weeks. So it's been a living with a capital L kind of time in my life.
I visualize you carrying an exclamation mark around with you, like a poster of one.
By the way, that is how I am living right now. So that's taking up obviously a whole bunch of space. And then, building my company, which works on, mental fitness and organizational fitness for companies and the people within them to help them win the moment has been like this other focus, and starting to get our YouTube channel up and running and getting the word out there about all the great work we've been doing is really top of mind.
Yeah, I hear you use that phrase a lot. And I was doing my homework, and mental fitness, I have to admit, was new to me at first. But then I got really used to it. It just rolls right off the tongue. But you use it very intentionally. And so for someone that's hearing that for the first time, how is mental fitness different from mental health?
Great question. So I always like to say that mental fitness is a subcategory of mental health in the same way that physical fitness is a subcategory of physical health. So it's really about doing proactive behaviors that build wellness in your mind, that really help you build a mindset to achieve your goals with vigor and consistency over time. So if you go to the gym to work out your body, we often do that not just to look good, but to feel good so that we can live our lives, parent our children, run around after our work, do all of these things and do that for as long as possible while feeling as good as possible. Most people don't realize that the same kinds of exercises that we have going on for our body, we can do for our mind. And these exercises help us feel more resilient, more focused, more positive, all in service of the goals that we have for our lives, whether they're, to be more present or to, be the next big blogger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're actually training the brain like a muscle.
Exactly.
Right? Well, okay. So I have to bring this up. You've shared a story about what you call ruck flow. and let me tell the listeners, in case you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to make sure and put it in the show notes. That's hilarious. But it's a moment when stress spikes and your brain short circuits and you say or do something you instantly regret. So I love that you teach brain science through something so human, and it's kind of embarrassing too. But what do those moments why do they happen so fast? And humor seems to actually make it easier to learn from them instead of shutting down, right?
Yeah. So we all say and do things that we feel embarrassed about over time. And humor is an incredible tool because basically what it can do is if you can learn how to laugh at yourself within these embarrassing moments. And for those who haven't seen the video, I had a moment during my internship where for weeks I was calling what was apparently a workflow assignment a ruckflow, RUCKFLOW. And this blonde girl was running around this big bank in New York with emails galore to very, very senior people, thinking that what I was working on was a super secret project you couldn't find on the internet. When I really just misheard my boss from Brooklyn who was saying workflow. So the second I realized that this happened, this like very embarrassing aha moment, obviously there was like a big panic. And I had called one of my brothers who just said, you should, control F the situation. For those who aren't familiar, control F finds the same one word in a document. He's like, delete it and then replace it with workflow and go on with your life. And the story, what started as like one of the more shameful moments of my life, because it was one of the first professional moments where I really thought I was over before I began, in the working world, became this like really funny story that I could then start sharing with colleagues and direct reports and people I worked with, as a way to show that not only am I human, but it also helped me feel a lot better about the situation, because humor can help you rewire the association you have with a situation from a pattern of shame whenever I thought of a mistake to a pattern of this is about to be funny. This is about to be something I can use. This is a growth moment. And so there's a research scientist called George Bonanno who talks about something called post-traumatic growth, that there are some people who leave a situation and even though they didn't choose for it to happen, are able to actually find a reason why it could have happened for them and they grow from it. PTG, it's called. And so I always say that humor is an incredible way to build PTG, post-traumatic growth, into a very, very embarrassing, humiliating moment. So yeah, that's my Ruckflow story.
Just own it.
Own it and then tell it and use it everywhere you can. Milk it, baby.
Lean into it. That's what I always tell my kids. If you mess up, that's how you learn. And you just got to lean into it, like opening a door.
I love that.
Yeah, they always loved visuals. Now, you talk about winning the moment. So for our listeners, it doesn't mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lizzie, but I don't think that it means perfection. It means interrupting the automatic reaction. And so is that correct or?
Good question. So winning the moment actually has a lot more to do with this so I talk a lot about this idea that, when you're in a moment of stress, you can absolutely interrupt that moment with all sorts of tools that help rewire your mental patterns so that you can process that moment differently. Winning the moment, though, as I talk about it in my practice, actually has a lot more to do with getting closer to your goals. So this is about really taking a pause and grabbing a pen and writing down the absolute smallest thing that you can do in order to move you closer to your goals. With the idea being that today we tend to spin, we tend to spiral, we tend to overwhelm, and all of a sudden we're either in this very, very stressed state, your lower brain, as you had referenced, before our call, where you're in your fight or flight and you can't think clearly, and therefore you're stuck, or we're operating beautifully. And what I learned from my own experience was that I kept getting stuck in these lower brain, scary states where I was so stressed, I felt like I couldn't win anything, and I'd kind of shut down. And so winning the moment's about writing down the single smallest thing you can do, not get outside and walk for 30 minutes. It's stand up. And then letting yourself feel good about simply writing that one decision down. Because when you write that decision down, you hit the dopamine receptor, you feel good. If you let yourself feel good, it builds motivation to actually do the thing. And very quickly you can get unstuck. And so winning the moment could be as simple as taking a breath if you're having a panic moment. It could be as simple as, I want to write a book. I can't write a book. I haven't done it for years. Pam, you are a beautiful writer, and I can't wait to read some of your short stories. But a lot of people write, I'm going to write my book today, right? And then all of a sudden they get stuck. They don't do it and years go by. It's, I'm going to open up a document. And then you feel good about that one task. And I can't tell you how many people, including myself, and how many moments, days, and goals I've unlocked by simply learning how to win the moment, which is make the decision and feel good about the decision in itself and let that be a moment of feeling good.
Wow. That's so foundational to everything Delay the Binge is about, because Delay the Binge comes from the +1 theory, which we talked about before recording. But the +1 theory is doing your best plus one more, a small shift away from the default. Yeah. But it's the center of all that we are learning. My listeners and I, we're just trying to learn how the brain works, how it can best perform when we have unhealthy habits. And the pause that you're talking about is the win the moment is very much like the pause, where it gives your brain a moment to stop and bring that frontal cortex back online so that you can ask yourself, why am I doing this again?
Absolutely. And this is where really taking a moment to make a decision about what's one tiny thing you can do differently changes absolutely everything. Because, I was just working with a mom who works full time while also taking care of her kids. And for her, the to-dos are, I need to find a new job. I need to, get to a place where I'd love to be home with my kids. Everything's so big. Our brain loves big bites. I always say that. We love talking about the marathon, but we don't want to talk about the one step or the lacing up our shoes. And so, finding those small +1 moments. I love that. And really letting yourself feel good about even thinking about the +1. Is where all of a sudden you really can unlock magic for your psychology, for your actions, and your outcomes.
Well, and just being curious and educate yourself about how to do this, because a lot of times when you're so exhausted mentally, you think, I don't want to incorporate anything else. But it's the old patterns, the old behaviors that are in the way. So you have to pause or be in the moment so that you can understand what that is, so that you can replace it with a better, healthier habit option.
Absolutely.
Well, so let me give some examples. So sometimes the win is just not sending a text, right? Or taking one breath, or not saying the thing your stress wants to say. Or when stress spikes, what's happening in the brain in that split second?
Yeah.
So when it spikes.
Yeah, what's really, really interesting is your body, when you get activated, triggered, nervous, stressed, you're bored, so you're distracting. It's any of these emotions that make you want to do something maybe you shouldn't be doing. You tend to, and it depends on which one of those emotions you're feeling. Let's just take being triggered as the initial example. Something triggers you. You get really upset. I was just in the middle of a move, and I mentioned I'm pregnant, hormonal. We had this whole plan of how things were going to go, and my husband decides to change the plan. Normally it wouldn't upset me, but hormones are raging. I'm exhausted, and we're in the middle of a blizzard, and I'm immediately triggered and activated. I was like, oh my gosh, we're never going to get this done. And what happens in those moments is that we have a spike of cortisol and adrenaline in our body, which is a physiological response. Now, a lot of people will say well, calm down, which sounds like a decision. But the problem is that's a cognitive choice, not a physiological one. And so in those moments, in order to calm yourself down, you basically want to try to do something else, which is why breathing, yes, can bring more oxygen into your body. The act of breathing for 60 to 90 seconds physiologically can calm you down. But the reason why I talk about winning the moment is in Western society, taking that pause is difficult. It's not a pattern most of us have in our lives, period. So when we're physiologically activated, most of us don't think, I'm going to take a beat again, because again, you're having this physiological response. So a physical action to start to decelerate you is to write something. And when you're writing something, you're using your working memory, which is the cognitive system that holds and processes information in real time. and you can't run two demanding processes simultaneously. So trying to fight off a bear or a tiger, or in this case, this very, very expensive emotion, which is anger. It's expensive, cognitively expensive to be angry and physiologically expensive. It can't run two processes. So by simply writing something down, pausing, writing something down, hey, I need to get one box from this room to the next, all of a sudden, I'm able to decelerate because I moved my working memory into a new area, because I gave my body time to relax, because just by stepping out of the room, I'm breathing. And all of a sudden, I'm in a really cool spot to be able to come back to that conversation and not react because my body has calmed down. So
it allows you to be proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly. And when we're reactive in that state, we're in what a psychologist named Dr. Bill Crawford calls our lower brain, which is really far from our neocortex, which is what we're talking about, which is all the good thinking happens. And we are using patterns and shortcuts to make decisions when we're stressed. And so those patterns tend to be negative. They tend to be extreme or catastrophic. We have a lot of these thinking traps we use so that we can not use even more energy that our body doesn't have in those moments. And so all of a sudden, our decision-making tends to be patterned based on the past, not based on what's actually happening now. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves often in situations where we're stressed when we react that actually get blown out of control because they have nothing to do with what happened. It has to do with what your body ended up reacting to, thinking it was a threat. So...
Well, and I learned just the other day about the lower brain, and it is the fight or flight, and it is very short term with its solutions in helping you. It doesn't think long term, in other words.
No.
Is that accurate? Is that correct?
That's correct. Because basically it's your survival instinct. It's make this threat go away, make this person go away. And so this is where the fight, flight, freeze comes in. Some people get stressed and they just shut down. Some people fight. All of a sudden there's a whole bunch of words that come up, or they get activated physically. And then for other people, they literally want to run away, and they retreat. They try to avoid the situation. And so it's all about survival, and the survival that used to be about us physically surviving a physical threat is now a psychological form of survival. And so our brain is trying to protect us. And that's where, again, getting out of this survival state, out of your lower brain so you can transform all your thinking up here takes a little time, takes a little work, and it takes often this distraction.
Well, and a unique awareness. I mean, because that's what I'm finding is that everyone is truly unique in their situation, their job, in whatever their issues that they're struggling with, that they're trying to avoid. It's all very unique. But you can, if you understand the brain, like I just learned something, and I would love for you to talk on it a little bit, that the lower brain does not help you, is not in charge of speech, like for us to talk. So if you say out loud, it will bring the frontal part, this part of your brain online, because if you say, I am not going to do this unhealthy thing out loud, that it overrides the lower brain telling you to do it.
Which is why a lot of times, and actually I have a video coming out on this shortly, but we talk about when you're triggered, like what are your steps? Step one is you have to notice, but step two is to actually say, I'm triggered, like speak that out loud. And then you start counting objects around the room. I have beads I have on a bracelet. And again, that physiologically creates space to calm you down, moves your working memory into a new task. So you have time to decelerate and move into, again, a new part of your brain so that you can then come back with the right kind of space that your brain needs to process the situation. So yeah, it's really fascinating. And once you start to learn this, the hardest part is like, but how? I'm reading this book called Bringing Up Bebe about this woman who raised her children in France and how French parenting has informed the way that she has chosen to parent her kids. And people have been talking a lot about this book in my friend group. So I read it and I was laughing because there's a theory called le pause, where it's like a sexy way to say, like, when your baby's crying, you pause and let them try to self-soothe for a little bit before you run over and help them. And I just kept having this thought, Pam, of like, we're all just kind of babies with more bills and stress. Like, like we as grownies need, that's what my sister calls grown-ups to her kids. Like, we as grownies need le pause. Like, we need a pause, and then we need techniques to help us kind of move past these moments so we can move from lower to upper in our brain and get to a place where we feel confident, clear, and excited about what we have to share back. Or basically, more simply, we feel proud of how we showed up even in a hard situation. And finding le pause, or whatever you want to call that, is beautiful. And again, grabbing your pen, writing something down, feeling good about that thing, is really what winning the moment is all about, and really what I have become obsessed with, because it just works.
That's one thing I appreciate about your work, is that you don't just explain the brain, from some neuroscience techie way. You build structure around it. Stop, slow, go, right?
Yeah.
Tips.
Exactly.
So name it, frame it, fix it. So
you're so good.
I told you I did my research. I did my homework.
I love it.
Getting deeper and deeper, like, wow, she's amazing.
Thank you, Pam.
So for listeners who haven't seen those videos, these are practical frameworks, all right, for navigating high stress conversations and reactions. So why does structure help when the brain feels overwhelmed?
It there's a lot of reasons, but one of my favorites, we're just going to go back to working memory, which is something we've just started talking about, which is just this part of the brain that allows you to be processing information at like only so much information at a time. It can only hold so much information at a time. This is why a lot of times you hear consultants say, well, there's 3 reasons why XYZ is happening. Or the news anchor says, I have 3 news stories, because our brains, they believe, can only really hold between 3 and 5 pieces of information at a time. And so when I say to you, hey, Pam, I've got this amazing way for you to think about managing the rhythm of your mind on a day-to-day basis, let me explain to you the science of how that's going to work. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear it. Now tell me. I could talk at you for 40 minutes. You're not going to remember. You're going to remember maximum 3 to 5 things, probably 1. And so for me, if I can basically come back and bring a visual that is one thing for you to remember many things, that works. And that's what I've seen. A lot of my stuff is a little cheesy, but it's meant to be memorable. Like stop, slow, go. It's a stoplight. It's a red, yellow, green. Your brain needs to stop, slow, and go every day in order to feel good. And all of a sudden things kind of go. And so I want people to always be able to, if they don't need to memorize my stuff, but I want them to be able to kind of remember, oh, there's a framework, name it, frame it, discuss it, fix it. That's going to help me give feedback in this moment when I'm panicked. And again, trying to remember that brings you to a much better place than, oh my God, I have to give feedback. I don't want to do this. This is emotional. It's, oh, there's a map. There's a way for me to do this. And your brain dislikes uncertainty. I have a video on ghosting that talks specifically about that, why ghosting is a specific form of torture. And so in an effort to give it a plan, that's what those frameworks are all about.
It's all about safety, right? Helping the nervous system feel safe. And I find that when I feel safe, it seems like I can absorb more, retain more. My brain is fires differently. I mean, or else I would have never remembered any of those things watching on your video, but I felt comfortable because of the humor and your natural way of speaking about it. So I felt safe,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. That's what we're going for.
Yeah. And so you explain that the brain processes critical feedback in the same region that registers physical pain. I was real interested in that. It's pretty powerful. So why does feedback feel physically uncomfortable sometimes, even when we know, it's constructive?
Yeah. Well, I think it really all comes back to 3 things, to come back to framing, right? Because we only remember 3. The first is it really matters how that feedback is shared. And oftentimes the person giving feedback doesn't necessarily share it in a way that shares intention, which is the why or the reason that they're trying to help you. Two, they share it at the end of the day or as part of another conversation, so it's surprising. And then three, that information tends to be shared almost like a firebomb over the fence, and then they run, right? It's like hey, by the way, here's one thing. And so as a result, we feel surprised. It's not shared with that like loving intention. And therefore, yeah, it can feel hurtful. And so that's the first thing, is that the way it's delivered really matters about the way that we receive it. The second is that many of us are people pleasers. We're perfectionists. And we're really focused on being right. And this is why a learning mindset in your life, I joke, if there's one secret plan for Your Brain Explained, which is my channel or my company, MYNDY, it's teaching people how to have a better sense of humor and approach to themselves. In the same way that they would a topic they don't know anything about. You'd show up with a beginner's mindset, be willing to learn and tell jokes. Most of us take ourselves too seriously. And so when someone gives us feedback, we think it's like an attack on our character, on how we show up, or we think we're failing at pleasing them. And so it becomes this much bigger judgment, and often it is actually just about, hey, you made a spelling mistake, or hey, you did this, you said this thing and it hurt my feelings. It's actually not about who you are. And then last but not least, I think the big thing with feedback is that most of us don't expect it, which is like crazy. It's kind of like expecting a system to get better without like having conversations about improvement. I went to MIT, we talked a lot about operations, and you need feedback loops and a dedication to continual improvement. And in order to get continual improvement, you need feedback from your customers, you need feedback from the system, and you need feedback from your financials. And so humans, we don't necessarily have a system. We don't necessarily have customers. We don't necessarily have financials. And so then it's really about your stakeholders. And so expecting feedback, if you want to get better, if you're surrounded by people you trust, should just be a part of the equation. And most of us don't.
Yeah. And you have to be open to that. But when you talk about the inner critic, I guess, is it the same part of the brain as the lower brain that we've been talking about? Because if not, they should be best friends,
Yeah. So our inner critic tends to show up when we're in more of a panicked phase. I have a video on that as well. But the inner critic, I always joke, there's a theory now called internal family systems, which is that every part of us basically serves a role, and that this critic in our head tends to come from an evolutionarily adaptive place, which is maybe this critic helped us get off the couch and make better choices so that we lost weight that we needed to lose. I had weight to lose in my 20s that I gained very quickly. And the person was like, hey, Lissy, I said she's a mean cheerleader. I call her Pissy. She's like, get off the couch. Come on. We're better than this. Right?
Yeah.
Aggressive cheerleader, not like bad, but in my 30s, she's now like my inner critic. She's constantly chitter chattering for me. And so it's less about, yes, when I'm in my stress state, she shows up more. But these voices and these parts of ourselves show up all the time. It's about learning how to, as I say, see your thoughts, not be your thoughts, or create metacognition, so that you can see them and then choose whether or not you want to engage. And when you're stressed, it's really hard to create metacognition or space from your thoughts. You tend to be them.
You're exhausted. You don't.
So exhausted.
Right. And my inner critic, it gets very loud sometimes. And I'm a visual person. So I try to visualize my inner critic like wearing a little hard hat and yelling, I'm just trying to help you, Pam. Oh my gosh. But how do we retrain that voice without trying to silence it? Because it is just trying to protect you, right?
Absolutely. And I think this is where the first step is noticing it. And I know that feels so simple, but this is where self-awareness is a practice, I always say. Noticing that voice and by naming it is the first step. So again, for me, this inner critic is Pissy. She shows up when I tend to be tired, exhausted, hormonal, and she's chattering at me about why I shouldn't be taking a nap in the middle of the day. Noticing is the first step. And then, hey, whether it's dialoguing with yourself, dialoguing on a page by writing it out, what's happening, distancing yourself from those thoughts and saying, hey, pissy in this case, thank you so much for your feedback on the nap. According to research and the past, 20 minutes is going to do me good. I appreciate you showing up, but for right now, I'm going to lie down and take 20. Being able to engage with yourself at that level is a skill. It's called distance self-talk. And it's something athletes do all the time on the field. They miss a shot. All of a sudden, they're still in the game. They don't get to take that pause, take a deep breath, and all of a sudden, hey, stay focused on the right things. But again, that's a practice. And sometimes it's helpful to externalize it by writing first, as opposed to being able to do that in your head. And that's what I started to practice doing. Was once I started noticing the voice, I would sit down and say, write down what she was saying. And I'm like, that's not so nice, girl. I don't think I need that right now. It's like, what else is true? And that's the what else is true is kind of like the next evolution of that practice.
Yeah, we teach a lot about the brain dump, which is we are I'm a big advocate for journaling, but brain dump is when you just can't sleep and you're exhausted, but you have all these things rolling around in your head. So you just write everything down, even if it's just one word. Laundry, pick up the kids, cook dinner, blah, 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 or whatever it is, you write it all down. And I do this every night. I write it all down to get it out of my head. And then I pick one, maybe two that are priority that have to be done right away. But the rest, I just let it go. And then I'm able to relax.
Which is amazing. And that's not to be a cheeseball here, but to tie it together. This is when you're winning the moment when you do that, right? You've got the swirl. You write it down. You just write down what's going on. And that brain dump, as you called it, in itself is winning. Like that in itself is an actual to-do that's going to help start to process your thoughts differently.
Well, this is so interesting. I could probably talk to you all day, but I do want to get to my favoriteest part. I mean, because the +1 theory is always about kindness, right? It's about doing your best +1 more with kindness, because I believe firmly it's a superpower for both the giver and the receiver. And so you've made a distinction between being nice and being kind. Nice maintains comfort. Kind does what's in someone's best interest. So how does that apply internally? I mean, do you think it's a superpower? I guess that's my question. And what does it do to the brain, the kindness?
Yeah. So I think this idea that niceness is about maintaining comfort, I think a lot of us are nice to ourselves. I think this mantra of treat yourself has become really big online. It's sweet treat o'clock. I deserve it. I went to work all day. Now I took care of my kids. I'm still living. I paid a bill and now I deserve. That's being nice. This idea of being kind, which is really investing in the betterment of you. Yes, you should be nice to yourself. It's about being honest with yourself, which is, treat yourself by all means. And are you getting closer to your goals on a day-to-day basis? Can you use that level of honesty with yourself to then start to achieve what you want to achieve for the long term, which sometimes creates short-term discomfort, both with yourself and being honest about what you need and what you want, and then also discomfort in your routine, meaning you might not be able to watch the Netflix show because you went to the gym and your night's happening a little later, or you decided to work and write a little bit, in your journal or for your book. And so I always say, I think that this generation upcoming and our conversation has a lot to do with being nice to ourselves, which is so important. And so many people haven't been nice to themselves. So it's a beautiful step in the right direction. But true kindness is working towards your purpose. And if you don't know what your purpose is, working to figure that out. And so I always like to say that we have a mental fitness benchmark score. So everything I do, we try to make it a little quantitative so people can treat it like a game so that you can visualize it and you can start to really understand how things work. And heart, which is knowing, caring for, and grounding yourself, which, as soft as that may sound, is actually the most important part of mental fitness. It's knowing, caring, and grounding for yourself is a multiplier for your mental state. When you are doing things that are aligned with what matters to you, not just in the second, but in the big picture, it
Mhm.
is way easier to manage an optimistic, positive, thoughtful mindset. It is way easier to manage stress. And so being kind to yourself is about really practicing that heart, which, fun fact, your heart sends more signals to your head than your head sends to your heart.
Oh,
Your heart
that's
sends more
I think
signals to your
that
head than your head sends to your heart every day. So how you feel has a greater impact on what you think than what you think has on how you feel. So this is where all of a sudden being kind starts to activate not only feeling better, but thinking better too.
so much to cover. I love that. The heart. I didn't know that, to be honest with you. That's
Nobody does.
amazing.
It's
What?
new research that came out in 1990 from a company called HeartMath. They have a
Mhm,
beautiful
mhm.
paper on this, and
Wow.
it makes complete sense, right? This is why we say these things, and we've said for centuries, if your heart's not in it, you know what I mean? Like, you
Mhm.
got to get out of the game. It's like we know, um, yeah, that when we're feeling good, we think good, but so often today we overvalue our thoughts and we discount our feelings, and not all feelings are true, which makes, again, our bodies these like really complex, interesting things that need to be studied, right? We don't
Right.
need to get it right. We don't need to understand them and set it and forget it. You're just constantly learning.
Mhm.
But
Staying
yeah,
curious. I just so important to stay curious and try to figure it out, troubleshoot it, but the self-talk, can sometimes feel harsh but it's like my husband, right? He and I have been married for, 30 years. Yeah.
wow.
Yes, and
What's the secret?
I'm about to tell you. It's
Please.
because he is, just blunt, and he doesn't sugarcoat anything, and I am very sensitive. I wear my heart out here on my sleeve, you know? So when we were first married, I was crying. I was probably crying the first 3 years because instead of wearing the yellow dress, "Why don't you wear that red one? It looks so nice." He just says, "The yellow makes you look really fat." You know?
And you're
He's
just like, there's 12 ways to say it. And that was the 13th. I didn't even know that that was an option.
but he thought he was being helpful, okay? It was harsh.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
I learned how to appreciate it. So if I could give you the best advice on marriage since you're newly married,
Please.
there's one word. It's acceptance.
Mm.
Because if you try to change your man, your husband, it's just you're gonna be disappointed over and over. You need to accept who he really is and help him thrive under that,
Yeah.
and it will work, I promise. That's what I
And
I had to
Pam,
learn.
how do we balance accepting who somebody is with evolution and how they
Ah,
change as they move forward? And I'm
mhm,
curious,
mhm.
I don't know if you have any answers for that. I know that's a big question and we got to wrap up, but
No,
yeah,
it's a state, it's a state of being curious and educating yourself and accepting the fact that we do change as we become. It's just a part of becoming, and that is learning and improving and using all of your mistakes to be stronger. And yes, you evolve into something better, and just learn to appreciate that in your spouse because grow with him, not separate.
yeah.
And if you don't accept something, if you don't like it, say it. Talk it out, just talk it out. So,
Yeah,
I know we do need to start but wrapping up, but let's talk about patterns a little bit more, and then I promise I'll
sure.
let you go. But one of the reasons I care so much about patterns is because, initiation is exciting. Maintenance is not. And I'm so passionate about maintenance coming after the action. I'm sorry, motivation coming after the action. Because
Yeah,
maintenance is everyone waits on maintenance from they wait for the motivation. I'm going to get it there. They wait for
yeah,
the motivation to maintain or sustain what they've accomplished. And if they don't, then they start over. So maintenance has to be inspired, right? Whether it's weight, leadership, emotional regulation, starting strong is one thing, but repeating strong when stress returns is another. So, from a brain perspective, why Why is maintenance harder than initiation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm also very visual. And I like to think
Mhm.
about it this way. So let's just pretend I have to get from one side of the forest to the other side of the forest. Many people think that that looks like a straight line. I'm just going to walk right through the forest and get to the other side. It's a mile. What's the problem? I got my flashlight. Let's go. The issue is there's trees in the way. There's bushes in the way in the form of distractions, cinnamon rolls that come with your
Right.
chili for free, hypothetically, like it did the other day. There's all these things that pop up along the way and we don't plan for them. And when you're building new behaviors, you're literally building new neural pathways, which takes energy. Your brain takes up 2% of your body weight, between 20 and 30% of the energy you burn every day. So when you're
Wow.
tired, it might feel like you have all the energy in the world to get from one side of the forest to the other, but all of a sudden, something shows up, a bush, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to lie down or go back. I'm good.
Mhm.
And that is normal because we don't plan for these things. And this is why this is, again, cognitively expensive to create something new. Repetitive behavior is the only way to really start to build that motivation over time because you're used to, oh, all I have to do is just sidestep this and it'll be okay. There's just one or two trees in the way. But my obsession with this concept of win the moment is that it's really hard to be like, well, there's only 20 bushes left that I have to navigate and potentially a bear on the other side of this.
Yeah.
It's all I need to do is just take this next moment right now. And if I
Mhm.
missed the moment yesterday or today, that's okay. I can win the moment right now. What's the smallest, tiniest thing that I can decide to do? And by the way, you don't even have to do
Mhm.
it. Just make the decision because that is the smallest amount of effort that you can take to start to get what I call the perspiration going and the momentum happening.
Okay, so I wanna make sure I get this right, and I'm pretty sure everyone else does, but I just wanna so small, repeated shifts, not big dramatic reinventions, actually help rewire patterns over time, correct? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you mean?
Yep. The one ingredient missing is so there's, as we call it, it's inspiration. So
Yes.
a lot of us don't have that. So let's just pretend that's gone. It's perspiration. So it's finding the smallest effort that you can take. It's celebration, feeling good about that effort. In this case, just the decision to, hey, I'm going to walk for 5 minutes and then feeling good, like, wow, that's a goal. And I just set it and it's doable. And then you start seeing results. So it's perspiration, celebration, results. And then all of a sudden the inspiration will start to come. You see that person on Instagram and they're talking about running and you're like, maybe I'll actually try running for a minute
Mhm.
today. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to run for a minute. But most people think it's inspiration, perspiration, celebration, results. I get inspired. I do the action. I celebrate it. And then I get results. No, no, no. It's
Mhm.
exactly what you said. You do the action. I think the action can be a decision. And that in itself,
Yep.
lower the bar and then feel good about it, which is what most of us don't do. We only feel good after we've gotten back to our quote unquote high school running routine. Forget that. It's decision, celebration, results.
Yeah, because I always feel motivated after I run or after I walk. I don't run, I
Mm.
walk, but so, if it's bad weather outside, I don't wanna go, but I go anyway, and then when I come back, I feel so motivated to do it again the next day, you know?
And you're like, I can't believe I ever thought that I wouldn't do this thing.
Mhm, mhm.
Past me is
So
crazy.
maintenance is a missing piece, like, I'm a post-bariatric patient, and so I wish they taught me a lot of things about nutrition and about what to expect and how to transition into my new way of eating, but they never
Yeah.
once taught me maintenance. And I think that's
Mm.
just critical in a journey like that. And so I'm very passionate about talking about maintenance with anyone on anything.
I'm also
So
passionate because I get a lot of people who want to hit reset on their life. And I said, there's no such thing as reset. It's happening right
no.
now.
Oh my gosh, I know. And don't waste it. That's what I mean by using what you've learned, even if it's mistakes or challenges. Don't start over. Just use what you've already accomplished and then move from there. And you're not broken, you're not failed, and it isn't even really willpower, you know? Well,
Agreed.
so we're going to try to end. You've navigated pregnancy. You're
Working on
you're
it.
moving. Uh and still building and thriving with your company. So real life while building mental fitness. So what does mental fitness look like for you personally right now? Not theoretically, but practically.
Yeah. So it's really about, besides winning the moment, obviously moment to moment, every day I'm thinking about stop, slow, go. So recovery, am I letting my brain rest? Cross training, am I doing something to teach my brain a new pattern and think differently?
Yes.
And then score, am I letting myself clock the wins, the things that I actually am accomplishing every day? And so what that looks like in practice is walking every day without my headphones or cooking without my headphones, no podcast, no music, really allowing my brain while I'm awake to process all the information and interactions I have. 2, when it comes to cross training, these days, it's everything from art to reading to drawing. And then 3, and by the way, also cooking. I play Chopped in my kitchen. Fun fact. So I literally go grocery shopping with like a general picture of what could happen, but then I look in my fridge and I say, okay, let's do this. Fruit Loops, chicken, and you know what? Just kidding. But we have some fun in the kitchen. And then last but not least is scoring. So every single day I'm writing down my wins, and I have an app at MYNDY that basically helps you stop, slow, go every day, so that no matter what moment of the day you're in, you can win the moment by writing down the one thing that you need to do. And then we've got all sorts of other exercises in there to help activate different parts of your brain.
Thank you so much for that, because that was going to be my next question, that, with anyone listening who feels stretched or broken, and what's one small mental fitness practice they could do, but you just gave us many. So everybody go back to this part, to that part, so you can hear it over and over again. And
but I would say, for sure, I would say winning the moment, though, just every day writing down one small thing you can do to get close to your goals, and so small it's silly, and then feeling good about that thing. That's the best thing you can do to get started.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much. Lissy, thank you. What I appreciate about your work is that you make the brain less mysterious, helps us all figure it out, and you replace the shame, all right, with structure. And that's powerful. Thank you for bringing your thinking and your humor into this conversation. I'm really glad we did this. And for everyone listening, winning the moment doesn't mean perfection. Sometimes it just means one small pause, one small shift, one breath, and we'll see you next week.